Hello, my friends. Andy of the Andy Falco Show, coming to you live from Brea, California on Saturday. Now, I had thought that I was going to take weekends off doing my show, but I'm failing at taking a day off because there's so much going on. It's so quickly, so rapidly, and sometimes things pop into my head and I go, oh man, we got to discuss this. And then something happens to reinforce my thought. And then I go, wow, maybe this really has some legs. This is the first time I'm going to come on with a theory and kind of work it out on the show. I've worked out much of it, but there's some things still that I have not quite completely worked out, but there's enough to support my idea, my theory, and I think it's a valid one. And so we're going to go through some of the stuff. What I want to do first, I want to get in a really good habit of doing this. I got to talk about sponsors because that's the only way that at some point I may be able to do this for a living and be able to quit all the other stuff that I do all day long. And that is one of those is going to be going to Today's Happy Coffee, one of my sponsors. It's a great place to find not only coffee, but they also have something called Zest, which is a drink, a lemon kind of flavored drink. All of them give you energy and suppress your appetite to a certain extent. Some of them are more than others, and the energy levels are more than others. But they are fantastic. They are healthy, and I love them. And so just go check them out. Go check out the website. Maybe buy something. Everything's guaranteed. If you don't like it, you can return it and get your money back. So if you would do that, that would be great. Again, one of my sponsors. If you want to join them as a representative, just let me know and I'll get you set up to do that too. All right. So then we have today's CBD oil for CBD oil right here. It's the best CBD on the planet. It's made by Viseo. Viseo is one of the top 50 healthcare companies in the world. And this has a liposome technology, which allows the nutrients to get in your body more effectively. And then we have today's Viseo.com, which is also Viseo, but they separated the CBD from the rest of the wellness products, and many, many great products in Viseo that you should try because they are truly fantastic. All right. So let's get into this just a little bit. I'm going to get to these words that are on the back here because they are significant as to where I want to go on this. And I wrote down notes. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you, or I'm going to talk about what Stockholm Syndrome is, because I think it's first important to understand. I know many of you probably already know what this is. You've probably heard about it growing up, that kind of stuff. As a detective at Anaheim Police Department, when we went to school to be a detective, this is one of the first things you're taught about. And then when you go to hostage negotiation school or SWAT school, you're told about that this syndrome is a possibility. Now, not all psychiatric or psychological studies can agree that this is really a thing or not, but there's enough information to think that it's something that can possibly happen. And I really believe it now because based on what it just dawned on me as I was taking a shower this morning, and I've been struggling with this, like, how is it you have a group of people that have been continuously lied to over the years? And we'll talk about over the 5 decades that certain cities have been lied to by their leadership about just about everything. And yet they still follow them with loving eyes and with just undying support, even though most people would know that they're being lied to on a daily basis. All this list here are things that they've been lied about just recently. I'm not even going back 20 years, 30 years, and 40 years. I'm going to get to some of that stuff. But when you just on a daily basis, all these things have come out and they're complete lies that they've been lied to. And yet they still go, well, that doesn't matter. President Trump is still a horrible person. Like, what? But he's not, they tell you that he's a liar and they repeat this lie that he's a liar. But we know for sure liberals, Democrats are lying to you, have been at least lying to you for sure for the last almost 4 years, if not 4 years, right? Have continuously been lying to you, have been spending millions of dollars to support this lie. And yet there's a large portion of our country that still love them right? And this is where we're going to get with the Stockholm Syndrome, because I was in the shower. I go, wow, this, I'm trying to figure out, because I've had discussions with liberals in private, conversations and on comments on posts. And every time you hit them with a fact, right, that discredits whatever their argument is, they don't try to come back with a fact to show why my argument is wrong. It has never happened, ever. Never in the last 2 or 3 years that I've been actually, one of the very brave people that have posted, some of my thoughts in regard to this. And they always come up with, they are holding us back. They are racist. They are. Like, okay, show me where that happened. Show me the clip. Show me the study. Show me the research where what you just said is fact. And what they do in the next comment is go, well, then there's this other thing. And I go, but we're talking about this thing, but okay, here's why that's a lie. And then they go, well, you're an asshole. And then Trump's evil. And then that's it. There's never so that's the premise that I was taking the shower. I was going, why when you showed them facts, why when you show them proof, and why when you ask them to show their proof, they come up with nothing and yet still firmly stay within their position and don't change. And so, and then I was thinking about the writing and all this other kind of stuff, and thinking about the people that are writing and who they are. You got these right suburbanite kids coming in there, and they're handing bricks to some of the lower income people who are then throwing the bricks. Or go, hey, there's more bricks over here. Come on, there's video of a white kid, that looks like he's maybe a freshman in college or something like that. And he's directing some of the black kids that are around, and maybe even some of the lower income white kids and Mexicans around, and saying, hey, we got bricks over here. We got bottles over here. And they're handing stuff out to them. He's not really doing anything, right? He's just telling them, and he's getting, hey, cops are evil. Yes. Black Lives Matter. Yes. Stop funding police department. Yes. Holding those signs. And then they're doing it. And I'm going, and so all of that over the last several days, I'm just like, what is going on? And I go, it sounds like something. And I couldn't figure out what it was it sounded like. And then I was taking a shower today, and I go, Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome. This really seems like Stockholm Syndrome. So now let me get to, I'm going to get rid of this lower third. I'm going to get to some of the comments. I see them coming in. I will get to them, I promise. But let me just get this first part off the deck here, so that I can go into a little bit why. And I think when I read this, that you may begin to also agree that I know this seems like a whole fantasy and a whole thing, but I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense to people with common sense and knowledge, and the people that like to research and have a free thinking mind. None of it makes any sense, because they're going, what the hell's going on? All right. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to go solo. You may not be able to see. I try to make it as large as possible so you guys can see it. And unfortunately, I have to use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not the end all be all, but they had a good description here that matched some of the other stuff. They just lay it out in a way that makes it easier for me to share. But just to talk about the Stockholm Syndrome, it has been defined as a condition in which hostages develop a psychological alliance with their captors during captivity. I know this sounds far-fetched, but I'm going to get you why that I feel that poor, underprivileged people are captors of the Democrats. I will get to that, and I think I will make my point. Emotional bonds may be formed between captor and captives during intimate time together, but these are generally considered irrational in light of the danger or risk endured by the victims. Stockholm Syndrome has never been included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM, the standard tool for diagnostics for psychiatric illness and disorders. And it goes on. So I want to make sure and read all of that so that you understand that this is a phenomenon that really isn't, accepted by certain academia. All right. So here is the thing that I found really important when I found this. And again, this is not the only source, but there are 4 key components that characterize Stockholm Syndrome: a hostage's development of positive feelings towards the captor. Again, you have elite liberal Democrats like Clinton and Pelosi and Gavin Newsom in California, the governor. And I can go on and name Bernie, what's his name? Bernie Sanders, right? These are all multimillionaires telling underprivileged, low income minorities, Mexican blacks and others, and even whites in some areas, that they love them and they care for them, and they are the only ones who care for them and love them. And so you have these hostages, which I'm characterizing many people that are that are in abject poverty, and they are having positive feelings for multimillionaires, elites, because they keep reinforcing the fact that, yes, us Democrats who are elites, we love you and we care. We're the only ones who care about you. All right. So just stick with me on this. And I know that it'll be difficult for Democrats, that they're probably off already. It's not that big of a deal, but I just want you to follow why, because I just need to answer the question, why? Why is this happening? The next one is no previous relationship between hostage and captor. Right. There doesn't need to be a relationship. They don't have to understand who Hillary Clinton is. They don't have to have any relationship. Right. There had to be nothing for this to happen. All right. So nothing previous to their belief system is in accordance to how well they know them, or that they know them personally. Number 3, a refusal by hostages to cooperate with police forces and other government authorities. All right. And then in parentheses, it says, unless the captors themselves happen to be members of police forces. So in this case, it's a refusal by hostages to cooperate with police forces. Understanding that everything is about the police are evil, the laws are evil, you must release criminals, and you begin to get into this third thing. The fourth one is a hostage's belief in the humanity of the captor. They have to believe that their captor, the Democrat Liberal Party, is humane, that they have to have this belief that they are actually humane, because they keep telling them that they're the only ones that care for them, because they cease to perceive the captor as a threat when the victim holds the same values as the aggressor. I think that is so dang important. Right, so dang important to understand about what I'm talking about. Again, this is my theory. I've not heard this from anybody else, but I read that and I go, this is really I think I have something. This is starting to make sense. Let me go ahead and unshare that screen here. I'm going to get to some of my comments before I go into the next thing. Hey, Amy, nice to see you. Where else have we got? Gayula? Stockholm Syndrome is captive. Yeah, I know. That's what I just said. Isn't it? So I just told you. I wonder if he wrote this before, because this makes no sense. What was the role of Derek? I didn't say Derek Michael, that guy that I've never given a name. I will not say his name. He's an evil former police officer that needed to be arrested. But I think that had to be written before, because none of it makes sense according to what I just said. All right. Hey, Amy, nice to see you. Great t-shirt. Thank you. I appreciate that. Of Stockholm Syndrome. I'm not sure about that. Hey, Heidi, nice to see you. It makes sense. Oh, thanks. Hey, Heidi. All right. So I hope I laid that out. And so I'm gonna go further. All right. And I hope that as I'm working this out live, again, much of this I'm working out right here in front of you and talking through, and anybody that has any additional information, just go ahead and type it in comments or private message me. But I really, this is a serious question, because when you have common sense and when you have education and when you do research, it really boggles us, me, other people that are on here that I know have common sense, as to why a huge part of a population, especially those that are downtrodden, that are, again, they're living in abject poverty in Baltimore, in New York, and in certain areas of New York. Other areas of New York are full of rich people, right? But yeah, it's primarily Democratic, right? And again, you have a part of the Democratic and liberal party that is extremely rich and an extremely poor, right? And there's not a lot in the middle. Usually the people in the middle seem to me, for me, and again, this is just from my my opinion, is that when you're kind of in that middle part, right, where you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to make money and you understand capitalism and all this kind of stuff, you tend to kind of be in that area. So you have in the Democrat, you got very, very rich, the elites, and then you got very, very poor, right? And then a few kind of wandering back and forth. And then in Republicans, we tend to be middle class, Walmart shoppers, Target shoppers, Christians, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And the very rich too, right? And some poor. All right. So this is just based on what I'm trying to tell you right now. So with that in mind, I want to lay that out, is because what happens in the Democrat Party, as you've heard Bernie Sanders say, was a very rich man, a multimillionaire, right? And Klobuchar and the other guy from Texas, I forget his name, somebody will tell me on there. What's the guy that was running for president? He pretended to be Mexican, but he wasn't Mexican. He was using a Mexican first name, but he really was not Mexican, whatever that name was. But what they tell you over and over again for 50 years in these areas, for 50 years, what they've been telling the lower income people over and over and over and over and over and over again, and continue to do so, and especially recently, is that rich people are evil, especially those that believe in making money, working hard, going to school, getting an education to work, and to wake up early in the morning and to go to bed late because we work and we make a living. But those people are evil, right? And they've been told over and over again, that is evil, horrible people. But yet the people telling them that are multimillionaires, right? Pelosi is a multimillionaire. And yet she says, we are for the people. Her town in San Francisco is one of the worst cities in the United States of America. It has increased in homelessness 300% since the pandemic started. One of the worst, right? Gavin Newsom, her nephew, runs the state of California. And they go, we love you. We tax everybody at the highest level. California being taxed at the highest level. We are raising money to help the underprivileged and help the Black community and help the illegal aliens, and we love you, but they do nothing to further the conditions in which they live. Never, right? The mayor of LA. I'm sorry, I can't keep all these names straight in my head for some reason, and I always lose somebody. But the mayor of LA said he's going to cut LAPD's budget and take the money saved. That was something like $21 million. I forget. It was a large, number of millions of dollars. And they were going to put that into Black issues and programs. They have been doing that for years. What's happened to the $1 million and millions, maybe even billions of dollars, where they've had that money that they've taken from education and put it into those programs, and still there's abject poverty, and there's still homelessness, and it's increased. It also has increased. I think it's not 300-fold, but probably somewhere in the area of 200-fold. Where does this begin to make sense to the people that are there? Go, yes, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black people. And the people go, yeah, I'm right. Well, I'm Black. I guess I will vote Democrat, because they've been told that rich people are evil. They've been told that Republicans don't like taxes because they don't want to help you. That's why they don't want taxes. It only helps the rich to not be taxed, right? The rich are taxed at the lowest rate. They don't tell you that many of the most successful people also employ thousands upon thousands of people, which all get taxed, right? They create work and jobs. There should be a benefit to be a free thinker who's created a product that has created thousands of jobs across the United States, right? There should be some benefit. I know they're rich, but what the hell? Right? But they're told that Republicans don't like taxes because they just want to give to the rich and make everything possible for the rich. And that's what they keep hammering home with these people that are poor. Republicans are evil. Rich people are evil. And they're being told that by rich people. Over and over again. They're told that hard work is not necessary, because what we're going to do is we love you and we're going to give you free stuff. We're going to give you EPT cards. I think that's what it's called, right? Food stamps, right? We're going to give you that. We're going to give you free education if you vote for us, and they never do. We're going to give you free medical if you vote for us, and they never do. We're going to give you free stuff. Bernie Sanders, famous for giving away free. You know what we're going to do? We're going to try to give you $2,000 a month, so you don't have to work, because work is bad, right? And people that are already sick, lame, and lazy, especially the lazy, are going, well, that seems like a really good idea. These rich people, Bernie Sanders, are telling you, you don't have to work, right? We're going to give you enough to survive, but not enough to live. We're going to give you enough to survive, but not enough to live. None of the people that they give these free things to, or the free money to, can they ever have any money extra to begin a business, unless they, again, are free thinkers and understand industry and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff, unless they get educated. But the left make sure that that doesn't happen. They make sure that doesn't happen because they have no care for the educational system and how well it runs, and that the money that they tax us for here in California never goes to improve the education of students, especially those that are in the ghettos and the barrios. That the money there really does not seem to make a difference. That they've not really put in programs to help them become educated, so that the problem that we're having in prisons is that we have illiteracy is a huge problem for men in prison, and so is the homes without a father. Many of the men that are in prison did not have a father growing up, but they use none of the money that they tax us for. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing any comments. I'm not looking at comments right now. I'm looking at my notes because I want to make sure and get everything here. And then now when the horrible incident like George Floyd occurs, they say, see, this happens every day to Black people. They say this happens every day. Al Sharpton, in the memorial for George Floyd, began to make a political speech and told the congregation, told everybody watching on TV that this happens every day, that people like George Floyd are killed every day by police, which is a flat lie. A flat lie. He stood there and I heard him tell everybody that was listening that this happens every day. And you know who repeated that? The liberal media. And so again, they have repeated this over and over and over and over and over again. And we're not talking this since Donald Trump has been president. And that is really the thing that really kind of hit me hard over the last couple of days, is that they're blaming so much on Donald Trump, and he's only been president for 3 years. All of this stuff was happening before him. Nothing improved in the 8 years of Barack Obama. Nothing. Barack Obama didn't put any of the programs that Donald Trump has put in, which is a large number of programs to help the Black community. But yet that message is not being heard. It is not being heard because, again, they're being drowned out by police are killing people like George Floyd every day in that kind of manner. Every day. That's what they said, but it's not. They told you that Donald Trump was involved in Russian collusion. That was a lie. Carter Page was a Russian spy, and they spied on him, but that was a lie. General Flynn was a Russian spy. We're finding out recently now that that was a lie because he never said anything about what they said that he lied about. And that was never talked about, yet they charged him for lying about something he never said. The quid pro quo with Ukraine, we know that was a lie. You deep down know inside that that was a lie because they had to make up the call. What's his name? Adam Schiff had to make up the call, in the Congress hearing. He had to completely make up all the words in order to get some movement, to get the liberal media to go, oh yeah, he said all this stuff when in fact he didn't say it. And we know that was a lie. The Steele dossier we know was a lie. That has been proven to be a lie. That the FBI said it was a lie. And they continued to do all this other stuff. Systemic racism is a myth and a lie. We know that from FBI studies and Harvard studies that is a lie. And yet they're telling you every day on the media that there's systemic racism within the police force across the United States. It is a lie. There is not. I know that there's racist cops. I know that George Floyd was murdered. I know that. I saw it on video. I've seen many angles. I watched another about 25, 30 minutes of video from body cams and other stuff today. Much of it was redacted. Much of it was removed. Even if I think the redacted stuff showed that George was fighting back, that still does not mean that you can kill him and stay on his neck for 8 minutes. None of that makes any sense. That part of it makes no sense. The contact was because he was cold. He was under the influence of narcotics, methamphetamine, and fentanyl, I believe, and I believe some heroin. He has priors, right? He has priors of robbery, using a gun, pushing a gun up against a pregnant woman and threatening to kill her baby. And he was arrested for that and convicted for that. And so there's this thought that I had that, the reason he was trying not to go into the car, he was resisting, is because possibly there was maybe a third strike issue there, and maybe some other thoughts. Plus, being high doesn't help you make really solid decisions, right? I just want to make sure and throw it in because I don't want you to think that I don't think that he got murdered. I think he got murdered, but the problem is he's also a criminal, right? He's also got a history. He also, put a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach and threatened to kill the baby, right? There's that person that they're putting on, but we're going to ignore that, right? We're just going to ignore that. We don't care that Captain Dorn, who was a upstanding citizen who was retired after several years in the police department there in St. Louis. We're not going to worry about him being killed and left to die while being filmed as he died. That doesn't matter, because George was murdered, but Captain George was murdered, and he's a black man. Hey, that doesn't matter, really. Nobody's crying for him. Nobody's putting up any, spray paint on the wall. Nothing. No. All right. And then now we have the hydroxychloroquine that has been proven to be a lie. This study that they used that at CNN and MSNBC and everybody said the president's going to kill people. It's going to kill people. Look at the study. The study says that it's going to kill people. It turns out that was a lie. It was completely made up. And I just saw a story that the people that made it up, one of them is a porn actor. You can't make this stuff up, right? It really gets you to think, like, fudge. They've hired some imbeciles, and they really think people are stupid. That's the other thing, that the Democrat Liberal Party think you, the liberal voters, are stupid. They really look at you as stupid, imbecile human beings. And unfortunately, many of you feed into that thought because you believe them, even though they've lied to you over and over and over again. The FISA warrants were completely a lie. We saw the attorney for the what's his name? Rosenstein. He said, I didn't read the information. Well, I read some of it before I sent it off to the FISA courts. Wait a minute. There was this report about the president of the United States. They believed that he was a Russian spy, and the people working with him were Russian spies. And he said, well, I was too busy. We had other things going on. There's nothing. Listen to me. If my 21 years as an Anaheim police officer, if I ever had an investigation as to the wrongdoings of a neighboring city's chief of police, for instance, and I just went, you know what, I'm just going to investigate this on my own and really not tell anybody about it, and I'll just give them a little information. But I want to code 5 him or code 6. I want to surveil him and watch him, but I'm going to just give them enough information, but not really kind of explain anything, and they buy it. But they also know that it's the chief of police in another city, right? If I ever did that, they would say, wait a minute. Get this straight. You want to spy? You want to code 5? You want to watch? You want to surveil the chief of police of another station? Give me all the information. And they would say, the sergeant would say, give me all the information. I need to run this up the chain of command. We all need to look at it and make sure that what you have is legitimate information. Where did you get this information? Who gave you this information? Who are your CIs that you're using to get this information? Because that's the chief of police of another station, right? So if we are going to, as law enforcement, go, wow, you want to do this, right? Even another police officer, we would really, and again, not that we don't look at stuff for other criminals, we do, but again, listen, they're investigating the president of the United States. And he said, well, I didn't really pay attention to the Steele dossier, I didn't read it, and so I just turned it in because it's okay. They told me they were going to spy on the president of the United States and everybody that worked for him, but I really didn't bother. What? And again, I just go, wait a minute. They must think the liberal Democrat voters are imbeciles and that they will believe it. And strangely enough, they do, right? And I see them believing it. And I go, you got to be freaking kidding me. This is so freaking crazy, right? The only thing that can explain it is Stockholm Syndrome, that for 50 years, not the 3 years that Donald Trump has been the president, because you can say, well, because of Donald Trump, and you can, you can say that, but you can't develop this mindset of they're poor people, right? They are people. The Democrats care nothing about them. They've not changed their circumstances in 50 years. The Democrats care nothing about the citizens of Baltimore that are every day wondering what they can eat and how they're going to get money to eat and how they're going to pay for their rent, how they're going to do this or the other thing. They begin to get into some narcotic sales, some prostitution, which is fact. Don't message me and say that I'm whatever. It's fact. Because they have no choice. They have not been given the tools and the programs that will allow them to succeed and become better and improve the conditions that they're in. And they continue to believe the lies of the Democratic Party that they care for them, and they tax at the highest level because the taxes are going to help the lower income areas, and they never do, ever, never have. The only time in New York where things improved is when Mayor Giuliani was in charge, and he said, listen, this is crap. Our city is gone to shit. And we have you can't ride the subway. We got trash piling up against the walls. We got people urinating everywhere. This is back in the 70s, 80s. I can't remember exactly when he was mayor. But he said, listen, this is going to stop right now, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to use the broken windows theory, right? And the broken windows theory is that we stop crime at the very basics of the misdemeanors, right? People that are jumping turnstiles, people that are committing petty theft, people that are getting on the train and not paying for the fare, people that are doing things at a mind. We arrest those people, as in the past, we've kind of ignored those people and said, we're only going to go after the felons. We're only going to go after robbery suspects and rape suspects and what have you. But there's not enough cops and not enough, eyeballs to catch all these high felonies, right? And so, listen, let's work on this. And the theory was actually was the best thing that happened to law enforcement at the time. I know people are going to say, well, that's racist. I'm telling you, it's not. Because the people that it helped the most were the Black communities, right? When we began to arrest the guy who jumped the turnstile, the reason he was jumping the turnstile was because he was going to commit some type of robbery, or was because he was going to commit some type of felony drug sale in regard to not fentanyl back then, but heroin or methamphetamine or cocaine. I don't really care about marijuana. I never really have. But these bigger crimes, or a strong-armed robbery, or pickpocketing, right? We stopped him at the turnstile for jumping it. He didn't get a chance to do the rest of the crimes. And when you begin to respond to a community with a broken window theory, and begin to arrest people for loitering, and begin to arrest people for begging, and we begin to arrest people for urinating on public property and defecating a proper public property, crime greatly reduces at a rapid rate, and it reduces fast. And in New York, during that period of time, they cleaned up New York in a very short period of time. You can look it up anytime you want to and know that worked. But what happened was Democrats come in and say, well, that was racist. And they begin to tell people that it was racist because, unfortunately, there were people of color and lower income that were getting arrested. But there are no additional programs to go along with much of those arrests to really change the culture of continuing in this life of crime. And that has never been affected. So, hey, April, nice to see you. I'm going to look at some of these comments really quick. Hey, Andy, my new favorite show is The Andy Valley. Thank you. Hey, Terry, nice to see you. Review. Wow, I watched the whole video and I think I might just sleep better now knowing that things are about to change for the good. I was starting, well, they're not really. I was starting to doubt Trump, but if this is all true, he will go down industry and that saves the world. There's a lot of work. Well, we need another 4 years for sure to try to get things started. Let's see here. David, the run on the same promises that are never fulfilled. Exactly. You could go back time and time again that they talk about how they're going to clean up Baltimore, and and I say Baltimore because it is one of the biggest shitholes on the planet. And then Chicago, downtown LA. Anybody go to downtown LA right now. Go to San Francisco right now and walk around and tell me that Democrat policies taxing California at the highest level has cleaned up those areas. Do it. Go there and tell me, is this the result that you get when you tax people at the highest level possible and promise programs to make changes in the lower income areas of our state? And you tell me if that has been a failed policy or a successful policy. And I'm telling you, it has been a failure for decades and decades and decades. And it is not Donald Trump's fault. He may be boisterous and say things. I like it. He reminds me of guys I played hockey with. They say things but you get stuff done, right? He's gotten stuff done. And again, he's exposed how weak the Democrat platform is, that it never goes anywhere. Scientists say that most Trump supporters and their kids have the intelligence level of someone with, oh man, Oh, Beto. Thank you. Beto O'Rourke. I don't know what he said. It's probably something really nasty, which is awesome. Take your time. It's 10 parts. I don't know what he's talking about. I guess I'll have to look at, maybe there's a link that he wants me to watch. All right. I wonder what Ricky was saying there on Twitter. Yeah. Something like a rat, probably. I don't know. All right. Beto O'Rourke. Yeah. What a dip. Another dip. This is so stupid. They're such stupid people. Like, you wonder, because some of them I think have degrees. I think some of them were attorneys. I mean, what's the not Condoleezza Rice? What's the one running? She was running for president out of LA. She used to be a DA. You just wonder, because they really are dumb people, right? They're educated, but they're dumb at the same time, because they keep making the same mistakes. They keep tripping themselves up and being proven to be a lie. Look at this list. This is just what we know right now. I'm sure there's other stuff that I ran out of space, but these are all the things that if you were a Democrat, you would say, all right, I've been lied to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Significant things. 8 times with some significant issues that the Congress and the Senate and the government and investigators spent millions of dollars. I bet you somewhere in the neighborhood of near $100 million have been spent on investigating Donald Trump based on a lie, and nobody cares. I don't even know that Republicans care that much, right? I've told you that I'm politically agnostic for the most part, but I know for sure I'm not Democrat or liberal. I know that for 100% sure, because I look at that and say, you have wasted our money for 3.5 years investigating something that didn't need to be investigated, that was all based on a lie, all this stuff, right? Even the hydroxychloroquine was based on a lie. That study that you went to and said, look at it's killing people. Look at the study that was done by a porn actor, right? That was one of the people that looked into it, right? And you're like going, you think I'm stupid? They really think you, Democrat liberal person who may be watching, are stupid. They think you're stupid, that you're never, ever going to at some point finally say, okay, the media, CNN, MSNBC, and all these people have lied to me. New York Times have lied to me over and over again. They told me that they had proof. They told me they had proof. They said it on the news, right? I love the arguments that I get sometimes from liberals that say, well, it's all over the news. Well, there's your first there's your first problem, is that you hear it and then you research it, right? You see it and then you research it and you try to figure out where is the truth, because the truth is not probably in that broadcast. You have to find out, well, no, that's not true, or it eventually comes out. One more lie that I think that I want to bring up, and again, I hope I have more notes, and let me check out my notes. I get a lot of comments coming up here. Wisdom is not the same as there you go. Nice. You're absolutely right. Kamala Harris. Yeah, Kamala Harris. Oh my God, what a nitwit. She's a total, nobody likes her. I really think she looks in the mirror and goes, I don't like me either. I don't know. She's just a nasty, the way she speaks and talks to people. Her personality sucks, and she's as stupid as a rock, but yet somehow became a DA. None of it makes any sense. But wow, what a liar, pants on fire. But they continue to fall for it. God help Biden, right? And oh well, that okay. I think I might have that in the notes. That they the DNC, right, the Democratic National Committee, have decided that Biden is your candidate, right? I guess he's won all in nomination, basically through all the voting. And are there that many people who believe that Biden has enough cognitive ability to actually even work on a daily basis, read a brief from the CIA, read a brief from the Intelligence Committee, to then make a cognitive decision to do something, because he doesn't have the cognitive ability to, on his own, complete an entire sentence. And there's proof that comes out daily, because he cannot, right? And there's so many things that come out. He's talked the other day, maybe that I do the same thing, I don't know, but he talked for like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and I've listened to it 5 or 6 times, and I have no idea what he was talking about. This was just, I think, yesterday. It was and you go, I have no idea what he just said. He actually jumps subjects in the middle of a sentence and then comes back to what the original. It is really a bizarre thing, right? when you see him reading at the teleprompter and going this, he can kind of get through, what he's saying by going by. I read 2 or 3 lines and I go over here and I read another 2 or 3 lines, and he can do that apparently still. But if you ever see him go like this and begin to talk, gone, right? He does not have the cognitive ability to make a sentence, much less run a McDonald's. And I would think McDonald's is probably not that easy of a place to run. He can't do it. So it's very strange to me that as a voter, if I was a Democrat voter, I would like going, really? Out of all the people here in the United States, he's the one? The guy that said that Barack Obama is the first black guy that can actually talk articulately, or he's clean, or whatever he said. It was something ridiculous like that. That he said that the Republicans are going to put you back in chains. That's the guy, or that if you don't vote for me, you're not black. That guy, like you're saying that he's the guy that all black people should be happy is going to be running and taking over our country. And again, I think they think black people are stupid. They're not that stupid. They can't continue to be stupid enough to continue to buy all the BS that's coming their way. It doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense is Stockholm Syndrome. 50 years they've been holding them down. They've been keeping them captive in these cities where they cannot get out, right? They cannot earn enough money. Some of them do. Some of them earn enough money and escape. But the vast majority of the people that live in these really tight HUD living apartments and situations, they never make enough to get out, and they maintain these hostages for years, decades and decades and decades, and nothing ever changes. But yet the entire time they're in there, they tell them how evil the corporate world is, how evil the Republicans are, how evil rich people are. They have rich people telling impoverished people how evil rich people are, right? Bernie Sanders, a rich man, is telling impoverished people how evil rich people are. Klobuchar, a rich woman, is telling impoverished people how evil rich people are. Right, and I can go down. Nancy Pelosi, a very rich woman, is telling impoverished people how evil rich people are. and then they go, and then they lie to them about all these things, and they go, okay, well, we don't want to know. Okay. And they just ignore it, right? It just goes away. You never see the news go back to these stories once they're proven to be lies. They then move on to another lie, right? It really is the craziest kind of thing. Let me go to my notes. I want to make sure there was a couple things I wanted to cover. Oh, I was going to tell you about another lie that I think that I'm looking at, and it's a tricky one, and I know that it's I may get some pushback on this, but I'm gonna mention it, and I want to mention it because if there's anybody that has any further information, I would like for you to send it to me. When you brainwash your captors' victims to respond to empty words and promises, these are my notes. This is not from anything that's written. I just wrote down these notes. I type as I'm thinking sometimes. I journal a lot. If you don't journal, then I suggest you do, because you can get a lot of out, and then you can put some of these things together later on and maybe help you process and kind of figure stuff out. All right. So, and back to my notes. I wrote, liberals create a meaningless reward-based sense of satisfaction by feeding into the victim's fears. This is my notes. Again, this is not from any study, so you can take it or leave it, whatever you want to do. The victims no longer have the drive to be victims. Their satisfaction comes in the acknowledgement of their fears and victimizations. Now, there's something in there that I may have wrote and just turned it upside down, but they some of them, I think, decide I'm no longer going to be a victim, but many of them, I missed the spot. There was something I had in there that I thought that I didn't finish, that there's some people that desire no longer to be victims, but there's others is their satisfaction comes from acknowledgement of being a victim and kind of reinforcing the fact that I feel like a victim, and I have somebody of stature, a mayor, a governor, a senator, a congressman saying, yes, you are a victim. And so what they're doing is they're reinforcing the thought that I have that I'm a victim. Oh, thank you. I thought it was just me thinking I was a victim, but I have all of you telling me I'm a victim. And you're right. You are right. Corporations are evil, right? We don't want Amazon in our city because they're evil. Never mind that they give jobs to the community. Never mind that, right? Because we don't want you to work anyway, right? AOC, right? Trying to keep Amazon out of her district, right? but they continue to be reinforced. I'm a victim. You are a victim. I'm a victim. Yes, you're right. You're a victim. I'm a victim. Yeah, you're a victim because that orange man that's in the White House is the person who's causing you to be a victim, right? Even though he's only been there for 3.5 years. Don't worry that you were a victim 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Don't worry about that. But it's still Donald Trump's fault that you're still a victim and you've never been able to not be a victim. All right, the next paragraph I wrote here, and hopefully I don't have any typos like I did in that first one. When you brainwash your captors' victims to respond to empty words and promises, they will ignore real reform and change. They will believe their captors when they say, ignore the real policies of the rescuer, which would be the Republican Party. They are evil and they are lying to you. That's what they tell them. Like, don't worry about the 5 or 6 really solid programs that President Trump has put into place and the millions of dollars he's given to black universities. Ignore that because they're telling me because that is not real. Well, no, I saw and I know that people have actually had a benefit from being in part of these programs. But okay, you can tell your congregation, if you want to call it, that they're living. We are the only ones who care about your fears. They are the ones who have created your poverty and poor education. That's what they're saying about Republicans, when in fact it's been the liberals who be created, because mayors and governors of these cities that I'm talking about have been in power for decades, not just since Donald Trump has been president. Look at them with your wealth. Look at them with their wealth and success. They hate you. They don't want to help you succeed. You are in fact a victim of corporate greed, is what they tell them. And they just continue to feed that. Isn't it amazing that so many multimillionaires like Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, Gavin Newsom, de Blasio, Joe Biden are telling the victims how horrible things are, and yet have done nothing to help you with your circumstances, have done nothing to help your circumstance. They've enriched themselves. How is it that all these people that I just named have spent other than Newsom, have spent their entire time in politics and are multimillionaires? Explain that. And I have one thing that was on my notes, and it kind of it triggered is what they do is they give them these little things, right? These little nuggets. And what they're doing now, and what I want you to do is continue to watch these little things that they throw out there. And what they're doing right now is they're making these immediate laws, right? This happens all the time. Right? They make resolutions in Congress. They make these resolutions in Senate sometimes. In cities, they make bills or they make speeches or policy changes. And they go, immediately, we're going to do these things. Like today we're outlawing the chokehold. Yes, look how awesome I am. And I'm amazing as a mayor that I allowed the police department, since I've been the mayor, to be corrupt and to allow guys like this guy that was just arrested to be in there, even though he has something like 18 previous reports of assault under call of authority. Forget that. Forget me as the mayor that I ignored that. And I didn't do anything about that. And there's probably others within the police department that have the very same thing. Don't forget that. But today, I'm going to outlaw chokeholds. But what they don't tell you is we have not used chokeholds since Rodney King. Rodney King, literally that event, even though the chokehold sometimes allows us to take custody of, and again, I'm not, have people die from the chokehold? Absolutely. But in some cases, it has allowed us to take people in custody without having to shoot them, right? It's the same purpose and the same reason we have police dogs. When a police dog bites somebody, a bad guy, it looks really bad, right? That's why you don't see many videos of dogs biting people, because the dog shakes his head and pulls on the skin and blood comes out and it looks really bad. But the alternative to using the dog is shooting the suspect. There's the alternative. So dogs, even though it looks really bad, saves suspects' lives. We know this. I've trained dogs for over 35 years. I've trained dogs all over the world, all of the United States, and they've all bitten suspects. Not one of them have died from a dog bite. Not one of them. Hundreds and hundreds of my police dogs that I've trained have bit people all throughout North America and quite possibly in other countries that I don't know about. And not one of them has the dog ever killed anybody. However, if they didn't have the police dog, there's many of those. I know many of the 80 people that my dog bit, many of them the alternative would have been to shoot them because of the circumstance we were in, because it was a SWAT call out. It was an assault of some sort or a robbery suspect with a gun and other types of weapons. And instead, we saved their lives by using that. Same thing with the chokehold. Again, I'm not saying that we should go back to the chokehold, but we have been told in law enforcement not to use it by the organizations and chiefs of the police. I believe, I wish I could go back. I have been trying to find where that came from. But I know in Anaheim and neighboring cities here in California, we have been told not to use a chokehold for decades. And so for them to come out and say, okay, we're going to make it illegal to use chokeholds. All right, well, we have not used chokeholds for forever. So that's great. Nice job. But that's not going to solve the problem that you think you have. That has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. But what they're hearing, what their captives are hearing is that they're doing something. And you see where they're feeding into that little, oh, okay, they took some steps, right? It's not enough to stop the rioting necessarily, but it's enough for them to say, oh, see. And so now they've put in this little, here's a rose, right? Here's a rose. It's a black rose, but it's a rose, right? And then they say, you know what? Also, what we're going to do, we're going to make it policy that another police officer tell on another police officer that's doing something bad. That has always been in the procedure manuals of every police department that I have ever worked with or for. That has always been in the policy. When I got tested for every police department I tested for, one of the questions on the oral exam is when you're sitting across from three people. One of them is usually a high level, like a lieutenant or a sergeant or a captain or something like that. Then you have somebody from the hiring process, the detective that's investigating you. And then you have somebody else, maybe a city council member or somebody within the community of a high rank or, high standard or something like that. And you got these three people. The question that's always asked in every one of these things since I began testing in 1984, 1983, 1982, I think is when I started testing. Wow, this seems like such a long time ago. In 1982, always one of the questions is, if you saw one of your fellow officers stealing a candy bar in a 7-Eleven, what would you do? And then, of course, the answer is, well, I would talk to him about it and say, that's illegal. What if he said that, mind your own business? I said, well, then you would talk to the supervisor, your immediate supervisor, say, listen, this incident happened at the 7-Eleven. My partner just took a candy bar, put it in his pocket, and walked out and didn't pay for it. And I just thought I would let you know. And they go, oh, really? Do you know that what that means, that you would be going against one of your fellow? I mean, they really began to pressure you and show you that, it's going to be horrible. And you have to, in order to pass this oral, you have to be able to say, well, that's just what it is. It's more important for my integrity that I tell somebody of something that I saw, which is a crime. It's a crime to steal. Right. And so you have to have that integrity, at least in your questioning. And so I love hearing, well, we're going to make it a policy that you have to tattle or you have to say something or you have to take action against an officer that you see doing something wrong. That has always been there. Do you see what they're doing? They're not really doing anything. They're really not taking any action. They're not saying how they're going to fix the educational system. They're not saying how they're going to fix, fatherless homes. They're not saying how they're going to go in and now change the supervision, because really it is a failure of supervision that allowed that officer to continue to work that killed George Floyd. It is a failure in supervision, right? He is a horrible, evil human being who stayed on his neck for that long, knowing that his breathing was changing and that he knew that he went limp. You cannot know that as a police officer when you're on top of somebody, because you can feel the resistance from somebody fighting. He is a horrible person and deserved to go to jail, but he should have been found out 10, 15 years ago on his third complaint of assault under color of authority or whatever those other complaints were. That's what needs to change, not take away the choke. I mean, take away the chokehold. Go ahead and say that. But take away the chokehold, take away or add that officers need to tattle on other officers. And I say tattle like it's a bad thing, but they need to tell. They need to tell somebody. They need to say, hey, this cop is like an asshole. And they need to say something. And I have said something. I have. And that's what I do for a living now, is that my job is to investigate the wrongdoing of law enforcement. That's my job. I've been doing it for 15 years. What have you done to fix what is going on? Those of you that badmouth me and call me all these kinds of names, what have you done? I actually investigate officers in wrongdoing. Yes. And so that is what needs to be done. You need to have supervision changes. Supervision changes. That's number one. Number two, you need to have hiring changes. It is too easy right now to become a law enforcement officer without really testing the mettle of somebody. I don't care necessarily about the education of a police officer. I know that administration and city council members and whoever else, they really want officers that have a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree at the minimum, and then they love master's degrees. I know that really seems like that's important, but that doesn't. I know people that I work for and worked with who had master's degrees who failed on a regular basis on a high stress situation, failed miserably. One of the supervisors, I told you a story, had more than one master's degree. And based on the order he gave me, a man died. It was a horrible decision. Me, without a master's degree, told him, this is a really bad idea. We should not do that. We should not do what you're telling me to do. And we should not do what you're ordering me to do, because the moment I do that, he is going to die. And he says, Andy, I'm ordering you to do this now. I did that then, and the guy died, right? A guy with multiple master degrees. Education is good, but it's not the end all be all to hiring somebody. What you need is a very good testing program, which we used to do back in the day, to really test what people are made of, what their mettle is. Are they brave? Do they make good decisions under pressure? Those are the things we've gotten away from in law enforcement. Now, I have friends, they still test. No, they do not. I have taught in the police academies. It is completely different than when I went to the academy. They used to yell and scream at us and call us names and cuss in our face and spit in our face, not purposely, but they're so close to your nose. You are a piece of shit. You are low life. Get on the ground. And you have to get on the ground and do push-ups. They make you hold it, and they yell at you. They get down on their hands and knees and yell in your ear and scream and yell. And then they would keep you up late at night. They would keep us in the academy until 8, 9 o'clock at night and have you back at 6 in the morning. And in between those times, you had to write 5 or 6 reports, right? During the time between when you got off at 8 o'clock at night and returned at 6 o'clock in the morning. In between there, you had to write reports. And they would tell you they have to be at least 3 pages long, at least have to be 10 pages long, whatever it was. And you had to write those reports. Somehow, you also had to iron your uniform. You also had to shine your boots before you showed up the next day, because if there was anything wrong with your uniform or your boots, you had gotten more reports and you did more push-ups. That is no longer the case in these police academies. Why is that important? Because you get in a situation and you can respond better if you've made it through all that program, right? That you've been tested for your mettle. You've been tested for how you handle stressful situations. Can you get through it, right? They used to ding me for laughing and kind of going, well, this isn't nothing. And they would say, how come we can't get to you? I go, I don't know. That's just how I am. Like we tried everything to get to you. And he meant it, because they called me into this TAC office. They used to make me sergeant all the time. They called me into the TAC office. Attention. And you got you knock on the door, you bang on the door, and they go, enter. And you'd enter the door. You had to order, you had to open it so you didn't bang it, right? And then you had to wait at the doorway, and they said, permission to enter. And now you walk in, you close the door, you stand there at attention. You can't smile. You can't look at them, because if you look at them, are you looking at me? Right. And so you have to stay focused and sit there. And then they would say, eventually about halfway through the academy, they said, all right, we've tried everything to get to you. Why can't we get to you? Why are we getting to these other people? They would name some people. What is it that you have that they don't have? What is it you can teach them? And so they began to use me to teach other people how to not fold under pressure, because men were crying, men were quitting, women were crying and quitting, and they were saying, why can't we get to you? And I would say, I don't know. That's just how I was raised. And so it has to be that way. That is not that way now. All right. So I went on a long subject here. It used to be that way. It's not that way. You has to be that way to weed people out. We started with 50 officers in my academy. We got down to 30. And then in the FTO program, we lost 2 more, right, with Anaheim. And because that pressure has to be there to know whether you can handle the stressful situation of being yelled at, spit at, told you're an asshole, and still make proper decisions without going too far. You cannot let your emotions get the best of you and you kill somebody or hurt somebody because you can't take it, because you got your feelings hurt, because you let it get personal. None of that can happen as a police officer. You need to take it day in and day out, 40 to 50 calls a night. You have to be able to take it. And over a 21-year career, it happens a lot. All right. So if you don't test them in the beginning, then you fail. The next thing that needs to happen, sorry, I went very long on that one, is that you need to pay police officers well. I know I know you have LA cutting budgets. You got all these other places cutting budgets. I'm going to tell you right now, in California, most departments pay police officers the most than any other state. Now, there may be some other ones. I haven't investigated them lately, but police officers in Anaheim and LA and Huntington Beach, for the most part, are paid very, very well. You do not want to lose your job. All right. The other thing about paying well is that good quality people tend to come to the cities in California and want to get hired in California. They don't want to go to even like Cathedral City. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to say cities, because I know officers that are in those cities. Hold on. Let me say in other cities. I'm just going to say other cities. Even within California, the further you get away from Orange County and LA County, and then, of course, the northern area of California, the further you get away from those cities, the lower the pay is, and the less benefits, right? The more that you get closer to these bigger cities, the higher the pay. And so the quality of the candidates tend to be better because of that pay, right? You have more people that do have some schooling. We have more people that are not still living with their parents. That is one of the biggest issues, I think, is that you have some people coming in that have never lived away from their parents and have become police officers. That is huge. It's a huge disadvantage, right? Because you have I left home when I was 17. And lived on my own. I came back, lived with my parents for a couple of years, and I went back out. And I took some bumps and bruises. I was poor. I was laying on couches. I was driving a motorcycle in the rain for 2 or 3 years. I never had a car. I only had a motorcycle. And you have to learn how to live and see the world a little bit. And that was, I think, one of the additional advantages I had to many of the people that had never left home. We had people in the academy that were failing because they had never left home and had no experience. It is ridiculous, I think. And again, I may be speaking to people that think the same way, but you cannot allow your kids to stay home until they're 30, like 25. I don't know how you do. You need to kick them out. I don't know, but I maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe you're thinking, well, my kid is not like, okay, your kid is not like that. But I know for sure that the ones that never left their home and that they became police officers didn't do that well. I can tell you that for sure. There were some that did great, right? There's always exceptions to the rule, but there's that. So pay is huge. The other thing about pay that I started to talk about is not only that do higher quality people take higher paying jobs, right? Is that they also don't want to lose that job, because the alternative is becoming a security guard at a fraction of the cost or at the pay of a police officer, right? You have $125,000 as a police officer here in Southern California annually. You know, when you start, but as as you're there for a couple of years, right? Your pay gets up into the 100,000 area, and then with overtime, many guys are making close to $200,000. Police officers here in Orange County, and then you just go a couple, I don't know, make 100 miles away, and they're making $75,000 a year at the highest level. You go further in the United States, and they're making $40,000 at the highest level, $35,000 at the highest level in some cities. Do you see the problem as you begin to get away from the higher paid police departments to the lower paid? Now, what is it that a security guard gets paid? $35,000 a year, $45,000, so maybe even some of them. I mean, I'm just talking about security guards, not your high-end security, but $60,000 a year you can get paid as a security guard. So when you don't have an incentive to not lose your job, I hope this makes sense. When your job is just like, I could make that anywhere. Like I could go work for Uncle Vito at the pizzeria. I make the same amount of money as I'm being a cop, and I'm not being shot at on a daily basis. I'm not being spit at and called an asshole and having shit thrown at me. Right. But I'm going to do that for $40,000 a year when I can work at the pizzeria for $39,000 a year or wherever as a security guard, as a bouncer. Do you wonder why these guys are working other jobs all the time? It's because they don't make enough at the police department. And so the incentive of not to do well, I just got told to shut up. See? That's my favorite part. I wish that would happen more often sometimes. It doesn't happen enough. I'm going to leave that up, but that happens a lot. Pay is a huge thing. And I know Democrat, leadership, mayors, governors don't want to pay their police officers because it makes them look like they're friendly to police. Do you see the problem? Do you not see the problem? Do you see them saying, well, you got Garcetti is his name. Garcetti is the mayor of LA. Do you see why it's important for him during this time of the riot to say he's not going to give money to LAPD? Right? He's saying that, but I'm not sure that that's ever going to happen. Right? They're saying it. You have the people in Minnesota saying they're going to not dissolve the police department. What's it called? What are they saying? They're gonna shut it down. They're gonna shut down their police department, right? They're saying they're gonna do that, right? It's just like they say they're gonna stop the chokeholds, that they're saying that you have to tattle as a police officer, that they're gonna make that policy. All those things have already been done for years. They've already in place, right? Are they really going to not have police officers for a period of time? Are you really going to do that? Do you think that's a really good idea not to have cops? Is it ever going to happen? No, they're just saying it. These are just broken promises and empty words that they're laying out there. The cutting the budget by millions of dollars of LAPD is just empty words. If he does it, you can bet that there's going to be some problems that are going to occur, and it'll come back. And so all these things are empty promises. And again, you need to hold the supervisors of all these police officers accountable for the actions of their police officers. You need to hold them more accountable than they already do. You know, the supervisor to that officer who was arrested for murder also needs to be held accountable. I haven't heard him brought up. I haven't heard that even brought up at all. The lieutenant that's in charge of patrol needs to be held accountable for the actions of the police officer that committed murder. They know that officer, they knew what he was doing, and they still had him going to work and handling calls. And not only that, he was a field training officer. FTO means field training officer. This guy who has 18 previous actions against him, they made a field training officer. Do you not think that's a supervisorial problem? Do you not think that the sergeant and lieutenant who made the decision to make him an FTO should have any accountability? Absolutely, they should be held accountable. Same thing with the captain that's in charge of patrol. Same thing as a chief that's in charge of the police department. Same thing as the mayor that's in charge of the police department. They all allow this guy to not only be a cop working on a daily basis, but he's also training young officers to be just like him. How do cultures exist in police departments? That's how cultures exist in police departments. These are the things that need to change. Are you kidding me? It is very obvious. I spoke about this aspect, and I know I've gone too far, but I've already talked about that part in other things. But that is the thing that needs to be reformed, not chokeholds. Chokeholds, we don't do chokeholds anyway, right? That's stupid to even talk about that. We don't do chokeholds. We haven't done them for years, even though they may save lives. I hate to tell you this, that even though they may save lives, we don't do them. There's many things we don't do that may save lives, because the alternative is shooting somebody. And better pay, better incentives for them to want to keep their job, to not get arrested for murder. Right. All these things are important, not these stupid empty promises. We're cutting the budget. We're going to take away the police department. We don't need policing anymore in our cities. Really, some of the worst crime ridden cities. You're going to not have police. Okay. But they don't want military either. Yeah. They don't want the National Guard, which is the in between police and military is the National Guard. I know that they like to tell you the National Guard is the military, but the National Guard is meant for our soil, for American soil. The National Guard is for the American soil, to support law enforcement when they get overwhelmed, when there's too many things going on, that you don't want to type officers to simply surround a building, a church, or whatever, right? That's what they're for. So the law enforcement can go out there and enforce the laws. You got they're stupid people, really dumb people that are telling you, well, the National Guard they have the military. They're using tear gas when they're not using tear gas. It is just the craziest thing. All right. So thank you all for watching. I hope that I made my at least my initial point. I'll dig deeper into all this stuff, but it is a sense. I think it's something that we need to really look at. Is that how do you have control over a community of people, especially those that are really, really poor, that are basically eating themselves, right? You have what was it? 82 people were shot in Chicago. 19 were killed. That was black on black, right? They're really killing each other, and yet they're still saying the Democrats and liberal are their saviors. Right, the people that have put you in this position where 82 of you are killing each other and 19 are dying and 82 people have been shot, and you're saying that the people that run that city, the people that run that state where the city is, the people that are overseeing the police department who are overwhelmed because there's 82 people being shot in one weekend. Every weekend this is happening. And this isn't unusual for this city, right? That you're okay that the leadership that has been there for decades allows this to happen, has done nothing about it. That's who you're relying on to save you. Good luck. Good luck. All right. I'm going to see if anybody told me to shut up. Oh, I just laid that out. I just laid out the difference between now and when I was a cop, or between cities. Well, I will tell you, maybe I got you now. The difference between areas of the United States is huge. It's huge. When I was out there teaching throughout the United States, in California, I had to go to a higher level of training because they were far advanced. In California, we seem to be far advanced. This isn't because I live in California. I hate California and our system of government here. So I am not defending California by any means. I hate the way our state's being run right now. They're a bunch of morons running our state. But I can tell you, I'm going to tell you two things about our state. Our state has really well-trained police officers. That's why you hardly ever see them on the news for doing something horribly wrong, like you saw in Minneapolis. They're very well trained. They fire people fairly quickly, not quickly in some areas, but for the most part, overall, they fire quickly. Because we pay so well here in California, we tend to have higher quality police officers that don't want to lose their job by doing something stupid. So you have all that working for us here. But the training may be the best in the entire country. New York has some pretty good training, but I'm telling you, overall in the state of California, really good training. As you go east across the United States, it gets really horrific. And you'll ask questions. I'll be in a classroom or in a scenario, and I say, "How many of you have done X?" And nobody raises their hand. You've never. Like in some cities, I'll say, who here stopped a felony vehicle, which is like everybody stopped the vehicle. You can't work in Anaheim, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, San Diego, San Francisco. You can't work a 12-hour shift without stopping 4 or 5 felony vehicles, maybe 1 or 2 at the least, right? But you can go to other states and say, how many felony vehicles have you stopped? And they're like, it's crickets. Like, well, I pulled one over about 3 months ago. How about any active shooting? No active shooting, right? And so as things begin to change, the training isn't there because they simply don't have the activity to warrant what they think they need as far as training. So when things like this happen, right, riots, they don't necessarily always have all the training that us here in California got, because we've been trained to do riots. We've been trained to handle shooting scenes where multiple victims are, catastrophes, earthquakes, terrorist attacks. We all been trained on all that stuff. Chemical attacks. I went to a class for a week on chemical attacks, wearing all the equipment that needs to be worn. But as you go east, it becomes less and less, and not as good. And it's very apparent in the cases that I get. This is the second part of this. I have hardly any cases ever that I've gotten in California. I can tell you over the last almost 20 years of expert witness on the wrongdoings of police officers, I think I've had 3 cases in California. 3. I'm fairly well known. I've written a number 1 best-selling book. I've been on television, NPR. I've spoken on stage at multiple events with DAs and defense attorneys, and done this for a very long time. And so they know who to call, right? And I've only had 2 to 3 cases in LA, and that in California. In some cities like Chicago, I've had multiple cases. In Baltimore, I've had multiple cases over the years. In Nebraska, I can't tell you how many cases, I think maybe 10 or 15 cases. In New Mexico, a horrible amount of cases in New Mexico, with some horrible decision-making by police officers, horrible decision-making. There's a video of a suspect with his hands up saying, "I'm coming out," and they sent the dog, and the dog went and bit him. I go, well, why are we even in court? Why have the department settled for $100,000, $300,000? Why are they even fighting it? But they fight that kind of stuff. It really is the craziest thing. Thank you, Robin. It's different when you tell me to shut up. So I hope I answered your question. It's money. Some of them, much of them are Democrat-run organizations that they don't want to put the money into the departments. They want to say that they don't support police, that the police are horrible, and so why would they give money? Why would they support training and make their department better? Because it's advantageous for them to have a lousy police departments. It's advantageous for them to have crime and the criminal element in their cities. It's advantageous for them. Like Chicago wouldn't have the amount of crime that they have if the Democrat leadership didn't think that it was probably the best thing for their platform, because it's not that hard to fix for the most part. It could take time and years, and you put in some policies. The ones I laid out would virtually change those things. You had the governor or the mayor, Giuliani, who came in there and overnight changed the criminality of the society within the New York area. Overnight, you began to see changes because he just simply changed a couple policies. We've seen it been done, but then he was called a racist for doing it, right? He reduced crime down to where now the average person could take the subway back in the day, and they could do it safely and feel safe enough to take it, where people began to take it again. People began to walk around again. People began to go to Central Park again because of these policies that reduced crime. And it had to do with some policy changes, just simple policy changes, and holding supervision accountable. That was one of the things he did that was super important. He held the captains of each one of the precincts within the New York area accountable for the crime that was occurring in their precincts. The captains were held accountable. He would fire them. He would berate them in the briefings and the meetings. He would have them stand up and talk about how the crime has become worse. And then he would grill them as to why is this still happening? What have you done? What programs have you put in place? Why is the crime? And he would just berate them. They would be fearful of going to these meetings because of the way they were run. Why? Because he was holding the leadership, the supervision accountable for the actions of the police officers on the street. That changes everything. This is nothing new. I am not making anything up. It's just they're failing to do it. The mayors don't care. The chiefs of police don't care. I'm telling you, that's all it is. It's all it is. It is Stockholm Syndrome at its best. They're pushing down these people that they think that they have as voters, and they continue telling them that they're victims. And the reason they're victims is because of the Republican Party and the Republican policies, and whoever is Republican in the presidency in the White House is the reason why they're impoverished, when they've been impoverished for decades before the president we currently have in there is. It is Stockholm Syndrome. And I have never believed it stronger than now. I even felt it stronger when I thought about it in the shower. After talking it through and talking about it with you and going on an hour and 60 minutes, I believe it even more now than I did when I first started. All right. All of you have been watching. A lot of you stuck around for a very long time. And I don't know if it was that entertaining or that information. I've been told to shut up by somebody named Jake. I've never liked people named Jake. I'm sorry if there's somebody named Jake that is a friend. I'm sorry. 17 when I left. Yeah, I agree. Okay, good. Yeah, I think he was talking about leaving, kicking your kids out of the house. They need to know how to live on their own. They need to get experience. They need to be adults, right? There's like this period, right? When you're coming out of high school, I think they have this very short period of time that you can be an adult and be adulting and being successful at it, and to get experience, and that you don't complain when a boss yells at you or disciplines you. Is that you learn very quickly how to survive, and that you're not a victim, that you're only a victim if you think you're a victim. You're only a victim if you've been told you're a victim over and over and over again, and you begin to believe that you're a victim, and then you're reinforced that you're a victim by some of these other policies. I have never been a victim. With all the choices that I've made that have caused me to be impoverished, and I have been, it was based on the decision that I made. It's nobody's fault that I was impoverished when I left home at 17 and was sleeping on a couch and didn't know where I was going to eat. Whose fault was that? Was it the president's? No. Was it my teachers in high school? No. Was it my parents? No. I could have blamed my parents because at times I really didn't get along and I left because of my parents, but it wasn't their fault that I was impoverished. I was impoverished because of the decision I made. I made the decision to put myself in that position. And now I had to make a number of decisions to get myself out of poverty, to where I didn't mix a can of chili and corn and call that a meal every night. That's what I was eating every night for a good 3 months that I remember is what was available. I don't think we had cup of noodles back then. We might have, but I know that I had chili and corn a lot because they mix those two things together are actually pretty good. And to change it up, I would, try some other, combinations of stuff. And that's how I lived. Right. But that was my choice. It wasn't because I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a victim. And yeah, I wasn't being oppressed. I wasn't being oppressed. I made the decision to go. So here I am impoverished, right? Here are a bunch of other people being impoverished, but they never changed their circumstances. because at some point they just get used to being a victim, and they get reinforced that being a victim is okay, because we're going to send you some checks. We're going to give you this card that allow you to go to the grocery store and buy some groceries. Don't worry about it. It's okay. You can be that way. And they go, oh, okay, well, it's enough to eat. I've seen some very obese people, by the way, that are poor. You always wonder, how are they so heavy? How does that happen? Right? I don't know, but somewhere they're getting all that food. I don't know how it happens. I know they have glandular problems or other things that I know. I'm a horrible person because I wonder that. But there's no victims. And now I'm rambling, going much farther. I'm responding. I got to stop looking at comments. Comments is what gets me in trouble and makes this last much longer. So I hope all this made sense. I hope that I gave you some things to think about and to help with your discussions with people that, are saying I'm a victim and don't you understand? And I get those comments all the time. I have a guy arguing with me right now that, it's horrible. Living in the United States is horrible. People are broke. People have to have 2 jobs. What's wrong with having 2 jobs? I had 2 jobs. I have 2 jobs now. Why is that a bad thing? I don't understand. People have to have 2 jobs. And then I say, well, I don't understand. I said, why have you not changed your conditions? Well, I'm not talking about me. I'm very wealthy. I've been very successful, and I put all my kids through universities. So I don't understand where you're coming off. Like, you know that there's opportunity out there. You know that once you get educated, you can move forward in some other positions and do things, that education never stops. Oh, I'm seeing the video that I had. I never brought this up. This 75-year-old guy that gets pushed down, there's a little bit of fishiness to that whole thing that I have not quite bought into yet. And so I would not be shocked. I wonder what they're saying right now, because I'm sorry if he got pushed down and got hurt and that all happened, then it's really bad. And of course, those officers, whoever got fired, should be fired. But there's something fishy about it. And I don't want to share with it right now. I'm just telling you that I would not be surprised if some other stuff was found out about that particular situation. Just one of the things I've heard is that he is a common and has been an agitator for since these things started, over and over. He's been arrested several times. This isn't the first time he was in that position, by the way. And so then there's some other stuff that I've heard recently, some pictures and photographs that I've received from a source there in the Buffalo area that make it a little fishy. So again, I'm not enough to say that the officers didn't deserve to get fired or whatever is going to happen to him or charged. I'm just telling you, there's something I noticed at the very first time I saw the video, which was fishy, and I will share with you at another time. All right, my friends, thanks for watching. Let me see. Good food for thoughts. Good. More, all jokes aside. Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. All right, that is it for me. I will talk to you guys later. Take care. Have a great, great Saturday evening. Take care. Bye.